You're listening to THEME-ADDICTS, presented by UnleashStrengths.com, the only show that embraces your addiction to strengths. That's right, everybody. Welcome to episode number, is this 21, I believe, of THEME-ADDICTS. My name is Andy Sokolovich. I am a Gallup certified strengths coach and the owner of a little coaching practice in Clinton, Iowa called UnleashStrengths. I am a coach for hire, enhancing employee engagement, recognition, and overall job satisfaction. If you're interested in enlisting the skills of a strengths coach or just looking for more information on what strengths really is, go ahead and give me a call, 815-441-2219, or shoot me an email, andy@unleashstrengths.com. THEME-ADDICTS is a podcast series designed to highlight the massive impact the Clifton StrengthsFinder assessment has had on now over 11 million people, and we're getting closer and closer to 12. It's our belief here at Unleash Strengths that the best way to promote its effectiveness and proven results is to interview those who've experienced the power of strengths-based development firsthand. Our guest today is intimately aware of their strengths and wants nothing more than to share their story in an effort to help others just like you succeed. For more information or to schedule your own interview, that's right, you too can be on THEME-ADDICTS. Go ahead and just shoot me an email, andy@unleashstrengths.com, and we'll work out the dates and get you on the show. Social media, we're there, facebook.com/UnleashStrengths, Twitter @UnleashCSF. If you want to subscribe to our RSS feed, you can go to unleashstrengths.com/RSS. That way you'll get all of our new episodes, podcasts, and blog posts in your email when they get published. And you can also subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, unleashstrengths.com/iTunes. All right, today is a very special day. A few months ago, I guess a month ago, we decided to go audio only on this show. The video aspect of it was getting a little difficult, sucking up a lot of bandwidth, and there was a huge learning curve, so we want audio only. And then I decided I want to have a co-host on the show because I don't like to be alone. And you guys know my top 5: strategic, futuristic, woo, ideation, communication. I need people around me in order to excel. So I had a good friend of mine, Grace LaConte, and I reached out to her and I said, Grace, would you like to be a co-host on THEME-ADDICTS? And Grace said,
yes.
Yes, she did. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome Grace LaConte as the co-host of THEME-ADDICTS. Grace, why don't you say hello to everybody and just tell us a little bit about yourself real quick before we get into introducing Paul.
Sure thing, Andy. It's really exciting to be part of this. I was interviewed a few months ago on the failed video attempt, and I'm so excited to participate because I have such a passion for sharing my knowledge about strengths and the exciting things that it can help to develop in people.
Well, we're excited to get your insights and additional questions for all of our guests, and I think this format is going to work out perfectly. But without further ado, I want to introduce our subject of the day. And I said subject. He's our test subject, our strengths lab rat, but he's very, very knowledgeable. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce Coach Paul D. Kelly to the show. Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're at, and reveal your top 5.
Oh my gosh! Good morning. Oh, I'm laughing. This is awesome. Starts. All right, third time's the charm. Yay!
Yes,
right.
This is the third time we've tried this with you, Paul.
All right, here we go. So yeah, a little bit about me. I live in Southern California, in Los Angeles, just north, and I am a strategic strengths coach and a contingent strengths consultant with Strength Strategy Inc. And also, I'm an educator, and I love Strength Finders, and it's really the root tool that I use in everything that I've been doing recently, and hopefully in the future. Let's see. I taught high school for 26 years. I taught high school chemistry of all things, and did coaching. And I'm not doing that anymore. Actually, I'm doing something that actually is more. I feel I'm more engaged in my life than I've ever been, and that has to do with Strength Finders. So there we go. All right.
What's your top 5, sir?
Top 5 are developer, consistency, positivity, learner, and adaptability.
Well, speaking of adaptability, we joked about this before we started the broadcast, but you are adaptable enough to record this show from a Starbucks parking lot in your car. So I appreciate that, sir. So, Paul,
yeah,
I'm going to go ahead with the first question. Who introduced you to strengths and why? Tell us a little bit about how StrengthsFinder entered your life.
Well, I was in a a master's cohort for science education at Cal State Northridge here in the San Fernando Valley. And part of one of the first courses that we took was a learning theory class. And my professor, Mike Rivas, he introduced us to Strength Finders. He had us get the book and Strength Finders 2.0. We talked about the theory behind it in terms of what if you focused on what was right. Could you do that with your students? And that was sort of the context for studying it in a learning theory class. What if we put our students in a place where they were, aligned more with their strengths? And anyway, so we looked at the theory, we read the first half of the book, and then we all took the assessment, and then we went over the results the following week. And immediately I was pretty pleased with just all the possibilities. It was sort of like somebody just gave me a key that unlocked a huge door in my life. It's like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. And then things have I just started using it right away. I love the idea that it's positive. It's based on positive psychology, and, it fits really well with who I am. I mean, just kind of in a meta cognition way. The whole strengths field and the content and the coaching, it all is about who I am in general. So it really was very validating. Thanks.
Paul, did you feel that this brought out a lot of things that you didn't even know about yourself? That the strengths, once you found out about who you are with strengths, it brought out like another layer of yourself?
It really boosted my confidence in terms of it just clarified so much, about who I am. And I mean, I can say that more because I've gained even, more clarity as I've stayed engaged with this, but to know that, okay, just this thing about knowing what my strengths are, because when you take that assessment and you answer those questions deeply, and not thinking about it too much, you really do get at the core. It's really a great tool for assessing, this is how I'm wired. These are my talent themes. And I've been putting my knowledge and skills, because I'm a learner, right? I've been engaged in my own, acquisition of knowledge and skills for quite a long time. But just, it really validated quite a bit. And, immediately I started using it. That was the thing. I started using this tool. So
yeah, that's probably part of your developer, right, Paul? You wanted to develop yourself and then find others to develop, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know that too much. We're not very aware of what these things mean when we first get them. That Gallup provides these reports. Now there's an app, which is great with the insights. And I sort of read them, but I wasn't really absorbing them. There's a learning curve. But immediately I started doing stuff with it. So, in my graduate cohort, I developed a Google spreadsheet, and I had everybody in the cohort, because we're going to be working together. In a cohort is actually a collaborative team that you're going to work with. And we were just beginning a 2-year journey. So I thought, well, let's all look at each other. Let's collect our strengths in a Google spreadsheet, and let's just have that available. So I organized that and collected that. And then the first project that we had, the major project that I had that semester in a group, when we met for the first time to plan the project, I suggested, why don't we look at our strengths and choose the part of the project that aligns more with your strengths. So I said, okay. So they said, okay. So they said, well, what I'll do is I'll be the team manager. And I'll do the in-class presentation, right? And I'm thinking, I'm just going to put that out there. I'm taking a little risk. I might sound stupid or like I'm trying to get away with something. But the reality was I was just picking the thing that was was the thing I enjoy the most, right? Well, it turns out that's how I'm lined up strength-wise. And everybody picked a part of the project, and all our bases were covered. And we also had to do an in-class presentation. We chose everybody in the group, put everybody into lab groups, and also assigning them lab tasks based on their strengths, kind of. So we sort of just started using the tool and lo and behold, the day of the project came up, our presentation, everything went great. The professor said, he told me later, he said that, he told us, he said, that's the best. He gave the highest grade in any project he'd ever given. Let's put it that way. So there's your productivity part, right? So energy, productivity, engagement. I got to experience it right away in terms of what the possibilities are with Strength Finders. And I was lit on fire since then. So, yeah.
So, Paul, tell us a little bit about how you use strengths every day. Now, you kind of you touched on your initial interaction with it in a classroom environment. You took the role of a manager. You learned how to develop others. Now, tell us what your everyday is like. Now, professionally, you use strengths, but was it one of those things where you wake up in the morning and think, okay, now how can I apply my talents today to succeed?
Well, I think the goal is to be more engaged in my life overall. So that's this thing applies. What I love about it is it applies to every area, career, home life, family. I'm very keenly aware now of what my strengths and my needs are through my own development over the last year and a half. And or longer, however it's been 2.5 years since I've took it. And it just is, it's something that's on the forefront. I'm consciously aware of it, consistently aware of it, like a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I'm using it, the choices I make in terms of options and activities in my life, I'm choosing things where my needs are being met and I'm able to contribute. I'm very aware of that. I'm aware of who I'm partnering with and trying to be more aware of what their strengths and their needs are, just in terms of on a lot of levels, and it's really freed me up quite a bit to, the goal is I want to be in a place where my knowledge, skills, talent, and passion are all happening. That what we call the A+ zone. That's where I want to be. And that's where I find myself more often than not. That the goal is to do that like a lot of the time, Yeah. I was probably, when I was teaching high school, I was engaged about 70% of the time, but it turns out my passion actually wasn't chemistry. My passion was creating this learning community where kids could learn and develop. And, but when you put a stack of papers in front of me to grade or do lesson planning, it's a depleting activity. And I was in a lot of, I got in a lot of trouble as a teacher, with that. And, so I was stressed out a lot, and eventually I've been out of the classroom now for about 16 months. I was able to go on sabbatical. I was able to focus on my own development, continue my grad program. And this company reached out to me on LinkedIn in February last year, and I got engaged in a conversation with them, and I did a coaching certification. And it's been wonderful. It's just that really has helped my own development, and then that's helping me help others.
Yeah, I like how you said, Paul, that you wanted to put yourself in that A+ zone, and you were really kind of maybe shielding any responsibility or tasks or anything that was really going to take you out of that, and as you said, deplete your kind of passion and overall energy. And I think strengths is both a selfless tool and a selfish tool. And that's why I absolutely love it. Because if you want to crank it over to the right and be completely selfish about developing your own talents, that's awesome. And that's something that's embraced. But then once you learn to master that, you can become more selfless and learn how to help others develop their talents so they can experience the same kind of success that you've experienced. So I really like that. Grace, did you have a question for Paul?
I do. Hey, Paul. We have totally different top 5 strengths. I have focus, activator, ideation, input, and futuristic. So I'm basically a strategic and influence-heavy person. And I find it interesting that we share a passion for using this tool to develop people, but we do it in a very different way. So I heard from what you're saying that you are using this as a springboard to create community and to develop people, to bring the learning into an environment where you can have a positive impact, right? I use the same kind of passion, but I do it from a much different point of view with data and proving things and looking at the way that the system works. And then I also care so much about how people work within systems. So it's just great that we're in this kind of co-community together, using totally different strengths, towards something that's pretty much the same goal, helping people to develop and become better, right?
Yeah. And, what I hear, you pegged it on the head when you said, and the reason is it's because we come from different, what we call strength lenses, are what we're looking and viewing the world through. We're all dominated by about 8 to 10 of these things, but those domains you mentioned, strategic thinking and influencing, for yourself, that explains how you go about it. And mine are my strengths are really relationship building and strategic thinking and a little bit of influencing. And so that's sort of, we all go at it from different ways. You know, it's the thing about, you know, what do I do better than 10,000 other people? You know, basically, you know, what is that? You know, and it's different for every person, you know?
It is.
Yeah,
well,
that's
for 10,000, right?
Yeah, but that's a real poignant question, because I mean, how it's so hard to, you know, when you don't have the vocabulary to use, like all three of us have kind of been blessed with, to have the 34 talent themes and the 4 domains of strength to identify with. But if you don't have those, how hard is it for you to really sit back and identify what your natural talents are? Not only identify them, but able to express it to others. And that's why I love StrengthsFinder.
Yeah.
So Paul, go ahead, Grace. I'm sorry.
Well, I had some really great conversations with the strength group that I've started in Sioux Falls, which is continuing even without me. I'm so excited that other people have taken on the reins to keep that going. But I've had some amazing conversations with people who have strengths that they felt that no one else understood them for years. And I mean, every type of strength, but one in particular is the strength of deliberative, where they're very cautious and they take the time to think through things. So a few people that I've met have told me that because they now understand that about themselves, it explains how they can approach situations and how they can bring people like me as an activator and ideation. You know, they can use that strength to help them rather than kind of grating on their nerves. So Paul, have you found that certain people maybe have grated nerves, or, you know, feel like there's fingernails on a chalkboard, and you can help them to understand why that is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have a current client right now, and he made the comment when we met on Tuesday night. He made the comment that, you know, like who would want to have my strengths? You know what I mean?
Wow.
And there's a, you know, and the reality is if I'm only focusing on 1 or 2 of my strengths, I could get into that place. And the idea is to get it more balanced, go to a place where it's more balanced out eventually. But, you know, relationship builders especially, and those are themes that, you know, mine are developer, positivity, adaptability. I also have empathy and connectedness in there, and in my top 10. And so I'm pretty wired for that. And the relationship builders in general are, you know, we're not quite sure how am I really best contributing, and how am I really able to serve with this and sustain and be self-sustaining, like, and not have any vocabulary for that. Like, what is it that I really do? What am I best at doing? How do you articulate that, you know? And people that are achievers or, you know, or executors, for example, they kind of already know what that is more. They're more adept at that. You said deliberative. You know, deliberative is my number 34. So I have no clue what that looks like, you know. But I was looking at my Gallup report. I was looking at my Gallup theme report on deliberative, and I was looking at their suggestions for if this is low for you, what can you do? And I did find a couple of things in there that can help me leverage what I have to make up for that. I'm not very good. I'm not very cautious, and it gets me in trouble, especially when it's something really important, right? So, but I do my consistency. I use a strengthened Covey planning system, and I use that very regularly. I've used it for the last 7 or 8 years. And one of the things I can do is delegate when I have a task that's important. I can delegate that to somebody. And it made the suggestion, if you have some sort of routine or something like that, plan in to include somebody else in your discussion. In other words, I need to have a partner. I need somebody in my life that has that deliberative strength, right, to help me balance out or to run things by when I have something important to do. So one of the things that this awareness and this of strengths in general has done is it puts me in a place where I am more in tune to what you bring to the table. And if, you know, and especially if we're going to partner, it can't be the same strengths. It needs to be a variety, you know? So, yeah.
That's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. And deliberative, I mean, you guys know me well enough to know that, you know, I run, and even there's a cliff approaching, I generally don't slow down. So deliberative for me acts as that safety harness. And that's where, like with my wife, I mean, she has high deliberative, so it really works out well. And What was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. Anyways, Paul, let's talk a little bit about that. You discussed, when strengths kind of entered your life, but you're so passionate about it. Grace and myself are just very motivated to help others see this. Let's talk a little bit about when you talk to somebody and you say, hey, there's this tool out there. It's called Strengths Finder. It's a simple assessment. If you take it, it'll reveal these top 5 talents that you have, and it really will help shed some light on who you are as an individual. If you get any kind of resistance, I don't want to take another personality test. If so, how do you get around that? How do you explain to them that this isn't just, your normal run-of-the-mill personality test found in the back of a magazine?
Yeah. Well, you're talking about kind of winning others over. That's my number. Woo is a strength, actually. And so when I have somebody that I'm talking with, I want to ask them, there's a couple ways to go about it. One of the ways is to ask them what their dream is. If you can imagine your life a year from now and it's dramatically different, what does that look like? And just sort of listen. And then I'm listening for what their strengths are, and then I might mention 1 or 2, and then I usually talk about the domains first, just to talk about, how people are wired and how do I find out what that is for me so I can really star in my life. It's like, we can't all be NBA basketball players. The American myth is like everybody can, if you just work it hard at something, you can be successful. And the reality is, no, it's, I want to be in a place where my knowledge, skills, and this is what I mentioned. I say, I want to be in a place where my knowledge, skills, talent, and passion are all happening. And if I put my knowledge and skills behind my talent, that's called a strength. And to get some awareness about that, and awareness about what the needs are so that I can contribute, really put me in a place where I can star in my life. And, and that's the attraction, I hope,
All right, Paul, let me ask you one more question here. We're approaching 25 minutes on the broadcast, and I like to keep it right around no more than 35, 40. But so you and I and Grace, we're all sitting there, and somebody is taking the Strengths Finder assessment, and they finish, and they get their report, and they print it out, and they look at it, and then they turn to you, Paul, and say, now what? What do you say? How do you reply?
Well, and my response is, how do I unlock that? You call it unleashing. How do I unlock or unleash those strengths to really be in a place where I'm in a place to be more of maximum service? That's, for me, that's it. For other people, it's like, just the awareness. What happens is when, there's things that we know, there's things that we know we don't know. And then there's all this whole huge space of what I don't know that I don't know.
Yeah.
And as these things get, I think the awareness, just staying engaged, the longer I stay engaged with my own strength based development, the more possibilities that, this new awareness, of it. And, to get somebody to the place just where they start to be aware of it and to appreciate that and encourage that, and then hopefully nurture that, it's limitless. The idea is we want to get to a place where I serve us so we can serve others better. And what does that look like for you,
Yeah, that's great, Paul. I've had a lot of people that I've probably encouraged about 70 people to take the assessment. Although I get absolutely nothing from that financially, but it helps me to understand people better. So that helps me when I'm serving clients. It's actually one of the first foundations of what I do before I can help a client with consulting. But I find that there are 2 types of people. One type of person takes the assessment and has an aha moment right away. Oh, that's me. That's absolutely me. And they have an understanding of it right away. And then I can help to develop that. And the second type of person is the skeptic that's kind of like, well, I still don't really see it. Prove it to me. Have you seen that too, Paul? Where they want you to walk them through, well, what exactly does this mean? I don't really think that word describes me. Sometimes it's deliberative, sometimes it's a maximizer, or maybe, someone that's has more executing themes and doesn't really see that the same way as the result. Do you find that to be true, Paul?
Yeah, well, as a strategic strength coach, and as a coach in general, I really want to listen and ask questions more than tell.
Exactly.
And I want my clients to really talk about when they were engaged. What is it like when you're in that A+ zone? And they can usually bring that up. And then I can start to point out or ask them about their strengths and how that comes into play if they've taken the assessment. If they haven't taken the assessment yet, I could use that to encourage them to take it. And I might mention 1 or 2 of those strengths. And, one of my favorite strengths to like let people like when they hear it, this aha thing is connectedness. Okay, because one of the needs for connectedness is they crave. There's this craving for nature, peace, and stillness. In other words, taking care of myself, like being exposed to that, helps me connect better with others, right? So if I hear somebody talk about the outdoors, basically, and they talk about, hiking or where they want to be and that kind of thing, I pretty much know that this is one of their strengths because it's pretty on target. And to validate somebody that actually is a talent theme, right? They can connect to the dots in the big picture and connect with others and are part of a bigger whole and all this other, this is something that is it's a heart strength. Okay. We've got head strengths and we have heart strengths, and the heart strengths are these relationship building strengths and some of the influencing strengths. And it really is more of a space thing and putting somebody in a space where they feel like they are validated. That aha happens, that's a wonderful place. It's we look for those aha moments and, but it's different for other people. It's different for different people. The people that are more maybe skeptical are the people that are more executors, maybe and influencers that, they're sort of okay. Think about it. If your number one theme is self-assurance, are you really going to necessarily rely on other people to tell you that? No.
Very true. We're strategic sometimes. They overthink it, so they don't know, well, that doesn't describe me, right?
Strategic is my number one.
Is it your number one?
Uno. Yeah, you're right, though. And I think looking back, I mean, you guys know my story. Looking back, I had taken the assessment, I printed it out, and I stuffed it in a desk drawer for about almost the entire year until I realized that it had some traction and validity, and it actually did very, very accurate job of describing me as an individual. So yeah, everybody, and I asked that question just so I can see, number one, individuals' action steps, how they get others to kind of understand that this top 5 is something that's applicable and they can use today to start really working towards a life full of strengths and productivity and satisfaction. And then I like how, Paul answered is, the first thing you do is really sit back and listen. There's that old saying, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And I think that's difficult sometimes for coaches. And I'll use myself as an example. Up until, let's see. I identified that as somebody with high communication and high woo, I talk a lot. And some of the things, and then my yeah, all right, laugh it up.
Well, you have the show, Andy.
Yeah, that's why I have the show. But then my strategic comes in. So while the other individual is speaking at me, I'm thinking about what my response is going to be, and I'm not really listening and digesting the content that they're actually providing me. So that's one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast, because it allows me to sit back and listen to others explain the strengths that they have and how they've been able to help others. So, Paul, last question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Now you've partnered with Grace, who brings her focus and activator in, right? And then that helps you play off that. Then you don't have to stress about that, Andy. It's okay what you do,
Yeah. It could be a vicious combination, though, because I don't think Grace and I have had a telephone conversation that lasted shorter than an hour.
Yeah.
So I pretty much got
ideas.
Yeah, I got to buckle myself in. So.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time. Time is one of the hugest. Autonomy and time are the 2 biggest needs for the strategic thinking themes. Yeah. So there you are. Yep.
Yeah. No, that's spot on. You're right, man. I need that. I need that interaction to succeed. I need it to be productive, because if I don't get it, I will shut down. And that's the truth. I had a job where I was pretty much told to clock in, clock out, do my thing, go to my cubicle, didn't really interact with anybody. And it was the worst experience of my life. I couldn't function. I would get jittery, or I'd get up and move around, and I'd, bother people unintentionally. And they'd be like, I'm trying to do my work. And I'm like, yeah, you have focus. I don't have focus. And then discipline and consistency is my number 33 and 34. So there wasn't a lot going on for me there.
I think we worked in the same place, Andy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of places like that.
Yeah. Just owning, discovering and owning our own strengths and coming into that and continuing to stay engaged with it is key. A lot of people do development, personal development, professional development, whatever, and they're like, oh, this is amazing, right? But then there's not an ongoing engagement, and the longer we stay engaged in this, the greater the possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Paul, last question. Out of your top 5, what talent theme is your favorite and why?
Oh my gosh. That's a good question. I really think my adaptability is probably my favorite theme now. I didn't feel that way. Because consistency is my number 2. It's about routine. And when I'm overdoing it, it looks kind of like rigidity, rules, and everything else. But this adaptability has really allowed me to adjust to change and to go with the flow. It's, that and my positivity, those are what I call recovery strengths. In other words, they're helping me when stuff happens that I don't like or whatever, I'm able to actually kind of roll with it and, stay upbeat about it. And the adaptability, the other thing I'm going to tell you is one of the things I've been doing to sustain myself is I'm a Lyft driver, right? Well, that's driving your own car as a taxi cab is all about adaptability, right? Because I don't know where I'm going when I pick up a passenger, but I get to have these engaging conversations, right? I'm actually passing out my business card quite a bit and having these same conversations that I'm occasionally having. It's amazing, And it's provided what I've needed because I've allowed myself to feed my adaptability, in other words. And that's probably that's the one that I'm keyed on right now. I really think it changes. I can't say that it's always going to be that or that is definitely it. I'm blessed. We're all blessed to have these things. God's given me these talents. What am I going to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, to be of service. That's the idea. How can I serve us? How can I serve us so we can serve others better? That's part of the big goal. So thanks.
That's great, Paul. I like how you said you feed your adaptability. You give yourself opportunities where that can shine. That's fantastic.
You said you drive. Can you explain what that Lyft means for those who just maybe don't understand how that works?
Oh yeah, I'm a technology guy too, like Andy. So I love all this stuff. Well, one of the transportation industry is undergoing a big transformation, very much like psychology has transformed into this positive psychology, bigger field. And this is the new age. And so the new age of transportation looks like Uber and Lyft, these companies where people drive their own cars and as a ride sharing opportunity. And it's using a app and geo-positioning on a smartphone, basically. And it's all done. Like I have zero paperwork.
That's
when
awesome.
I do this, that's like all I got to do is be present, and it's like it totally is. And I would never maybe pick being a Lyft driver before, but knowing what my strengths were enabled me to do that. But Lyft is the online, the technological way to get a taxi nowadays and get a ride, about half the price of a taxi. Uber is the first one. That's the Goliath in the industry. And Lyft is actually about their motto is driving you happy. So there's a relationship building communal part to the Lyft experience that is additional. So I'm in the right place on that.
And imagine if the company Lyft used the StrengthsFinder assessment to kind of filter, their drivers. If they knew that the goal was to make the passengers happy, they would really try to seek out those who had those relationship building talents. I know if I was a Lyft operator or a Lyft car driver, it would be very difficult because my communication and my woo would kick in, and they'd be like, "Yeah, I asked you to drive me like 8 blocks, and we've been in the car now for an hour and 15 minutes," and I'd be like, "Oh wait, let me tell you this last story, and then I'll let you go." That's how that would go down.
I had a passenger who actually had taken strength finders.
Oh, cool, man!
And had been a Lyft driver.
Wow!
What the hell?
Yeah, how many of you are in the world?
I asked them a bunch of questions, and because my strengths, I don't like to sit. I drop a passenger off. I can't just sit there and be by I have to keep driving, so I keep driving, right? But my favorite part of the job, the most engaging part of the job, is when I've got a passenger in the car, right?
Mm-hmm.
This guy, his most engaging time was when the passenger was between rides because it gave him a chance to think. Because his strengths were like these strategic thinking strengths.
I understand that.
And Lyft really allowed him that time.
Wow. Cool. I really like that. That's a great way to end the show. Paul, do you have any closing comments before we go ahead and end episode 21 here of the? Is this 20 or 21? I don't know. I lose track. Anyways, when we episode this 20, huh? See, you know better than I do, and it's my dang show. This is crazy.
Consistency.
I know. See, it gets me every time. Paul, do you have any closing comments for us?
Yeah, I just, what a great opportunity. Thank you, Andy, for this. And, it's just another tool to help us, help other people become more engaged in their lives. I just love this thing, what you're doing with your strengths, what Grace is now doing. It has been, I just look forward to more of it. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Appreciate you being on the show. Grace, do you have anything for our millions and millions of listeners out there?
It's great to be part of the show. Can't wait to hear more people explain their love for strengths like Paul. Thanks so much for sharing with us, Paul. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Grace. Enjoy Vancouver. It's so beautiful up there. Oh, my God.
All right, everybody. This is Andy with UnleashStrengths.com, my co-host, Grace LaConte. Thank you for joining us, Coach Paul D. Kelly. We're going to close out this episode of Theme-Addicts, and we'll see you guys next time. See ya. Thank you for listening to another episode of Theme-Addicts presented by UnleashStrengths.com. Remember to embrace your strengths and always stay addicted.